The Outer Realm with Michelle, Desrochers, and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live via International Public Radio here on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. The Outer Realm is fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee, who have had faith in us from day one. Thank you, Folgers. Would not be the same without you. And, of course, big thank you to our other sponsor, who is responsible for the intro and outro here on the Outer Realm, Dr. Snick, a.k.a. the Sonic Surgeon. Justin Snicker, an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, and sci-fi darkware electronic music. His music is available on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, and, of course, most streaming platforms. So thank you for your generous contribution to our show. And tonight we welcome Dan and Kat Eckhart to the show. And for the first time, being it's Spooky Month, just perfect because they will be discussing the occult, seances, paranormal, anything that's out there and interesting. So looking forward to that. But to participate in tonight's show, head on over to one of our 8 platforms that are simultaneously playing. So, of course, if you want to get a direct message quickly, please go to UFO Paranormal Radio on YouTube and just tag Amelia. Otherwise, you can find it also on International Public Radio and YouTube, UFO Paranormal Twitch, Outer Realm, a Facebook page, News on the Flip Side, Canada's Most Haunted with yours truly, and Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover, and of course, UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio YouTube. And good God, I think I've got it all. Take a breath. Maybe get a glass of wine. I can't breathe. So anyway, yes. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I know that our guests are waiting for us. So you want to give a real quick bio and we'll bring them in. Perfect.
I am so excited. I've been really looking forward to this show. Love everything about them. The Eckharts are seance hosts, mediums, and celebrity occultists. Obsessed with exploring what lies beyond the veil, as are we, and we're so excited. Please welcome Dan and Kat Eckhart to the Outer Realm tonight. Hi, welcome. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
We're great.
We're doing very well. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you. It's our pleasure. I knew I liked you right away when Facebook kept tagging or flagging your websites as, they didn't like the content. I'm like, yeah, see right there. Yes. That's going to be good. I know.
Oh, yes.
We didn't post them. They just kept saying
exciting.
They didn't like the content.
I have no idea why. I actually spoke with one of the rare people who exist at Facebook, had an actual phone call.
Whoa.
Either, but I love it. It's great.
Oh, it is. Right.
I think it's fantastic because I could still access it. I just couldn't share it.
No.
But I could still access it.
No,
so I'm like, this is
right.
crazy. It just kept bouncing back at me. And I'm looking and I said to Michelle, I swear I posted and promoted them 6 times already and I can't find it. And I'm getting all these community standard things. I'm like, really? But I couldn't do it even for next week's. So I guess that day of sailing, he had a few other things in mind as well.
Yeah. Well, welcome.
Yeah.
How does one, were you guys each into all of this before you're a couple, after a couple? Why don't you just bring us through your humble beginnings and how you came to be in this amazing field, shall we say?
Sure.
It is an amazing field. And no, we didn't start out, I can't say we didn't start out interested because I think we were. I just didn't think we knew the scope of this world. We met when we were in college. And at that point, we were still very much forming as human beings, as we will continue to do throughout our lives. But we didn't really know about this kind of stuff. We didn't know about seances as a modern practice, and we didn't know much about occultism.
Exactly. I grew up in a relatively, I would say, relatively small church kind of environment, very much not into this kind of thing.
No.
And I grew up also at the same time in a haunted house. So I didn't really have a framework to deal with the haunted house, or to know what that was, or to know like what spirit visitation looked like. My gateway into this world was a gift from a family member that was a Reader's Digest, like 20th century thing, like a book series. And they had a bunch of books on like futurism and like the wars and medical stuff, and like it's very Reader's Digest.
Right.
Internal combustion as
Well, yes, they had one book, and it was my favorite of all of them, which was about weird stuff. It was about UFOs and ghosts and seances and internal combustion.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
one.
like,
isn't it?
very interesting. Spontaneous combustion. Excuse me. Spontaneous combustion. And so I was fascinated by that, and really fascinated by this kind of look into the world of like aliens and UFOs, because I didn't have a framework for it. All I had was what was on the History Channel, and what I heard in church was like that this was demons, which somehow made it even more terrifying.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
For me, it was this kind of like easing in. When I went to college, on the first day, I went to a small like Christian college. On the first day, I met Kat, and of course, we don't talk about these things. You don't walk up to someone in a community like that and say, "Hello, are you interested in aliens?"
Right. Yeah, I don't think that it would have went over like a lead balloon, I'm sure.
Exactly. But the thing that stuck out to me from the beginning was it felt like we had known each other for a very long period of time. And I remember thinking how weird it was, because at the time I didn't believe in past lives, but I felt like I had to know her from somewhere. And over the course of 10 years together, and being married for almost 6 of those 10 years,
Nice.
There's been this journey deeper and deeper into the weird, and more into making it part of our lives.
And how does weird fit in? Because you seem like a very wholesome couple. You don't mind my saying, sort of like the couple next door who's got all the weird stuff behind closed doors. It's like,
Oh, did she give you away?
Yes.
That's us. I feel like that's an accurate description. For me, the weird is a place where I can be free and comfortable. And I really want to invite everyone to feel the ability to express what they think and believe and are interested in around us.
I think that's a really interesting part of like the culture around mediumship, seances, UFOs, ghosts, paranormal investigation, is there is sometimes this pressure to be like outwardly vocal about what you do, or to kind of exist in like an Addams Family kind of vibe, which personally I love. But one of the things it's an amazing. We're currently not in our lair, so to speak, and so we're very jealous of your backgrounds, because that's what our studio looks like.
That's been my life in the field for almost 19 years, so you're amongst weirdos. You're good.
But that's always been something I've like kind of come to love too, where people who we meet who maybe would be afraid of talking about witchcraft or afraid of attending a seance have literally said to their friends, to their family, "Oh, you need to talk to the Eckharts. Don't worry, they're not weird." And we're like, "Do you know us? You're going to know us."
Yes, we're weird. How dare you insult us like that?
Normal is an insult. No one strives to be normal here. You know what's really, really strange? I just want to mention this quickly, because when you said we met in college, I lost my breath and went into like a deja vu kind of state. And you were talking, and it was like I felt like I have had this conversation with you, exact background and everything. It was just bizarre. That's never happened with
dimension, maybe.
It's never happened with a guest. So I just thought I'd mention that, because that was really strange for me.
Were we like connected? Maybe
it was weird. Yeah, that kind of.
That's really cool.
That kind of thing. It was.
Let's see if it continues.
I hope so.
Keep the show interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was really, really different. I'm like, wow.
Oh, just want to put a shout out to everybody joining in. Zachman, Jeannie Spencer, Richard Kidd, and who else? I know we've got somebody else.
Billy
Billy
Rose.
Rose. Yeah, okay. It's filling up. Great. Thank you.
Scroll up. There's so many.
Zachman.
I don't
Weird
know
is the
if
new
you can
cool. Yes, it is. There it is. You'll see I'll do this to give you
Well,
guys a
he
chance
loves
to
your
see.
he loves your ascot. He wrote that
Yeah, there we
earlier,
go.
but you were speaking.
There
Yeah.
we go.
Thank you.
Yes, there we go. So what made you decide, like, I
Hi,
know for
David.
myself in the field, it was very, I mean, I ended up, see, we love it when the pets join in too. That's awesome.
He always has to.
She does.
Aw.
She was attracted by the magic that's happening.
Aw, adorable. Hey, David. Being in the field for myself, I ended up, specifically dealing in malevolent, cases, alleged demonic attachments and oppression. And then, of course, I think those of us in the field always end up veering to ufology and, the esoteric stuff. So what was it for you guys? Where did you start and how have you evolved into it? Where are you at now?
Yeah, that's a lovely question. And we, Dan and I do have slightly different stories from each other. And we usually start with yours because yours was the dealing with the haunted house.
Yeah, for me, it started as like a childhood kind of experience. There was, I was never afraid of the dark. I loved science fiction. I loved all of that kind of stuff. And growing up, sometimes I was accused of having an overactive imagination or watching too many like late night Star Trek or Star Wars movies. But to me, there was a very defined difference between that kind of entertainment, which I just ate up, and then these nighttime experiences, which were kind of hair-raising and, well, actually really scary as a kid. Looking back, there are quite a few that stand out as unique, like shadowy things in the bedroom, like shadowy, tall individuals kind of walking about. One that stands out to me consistently is opening up my bedroom window in the morning, like when it was like just becoming light, and an owl being perched out on the window looking
That's
in
different.
to the face.
That's very kind.
Yeah.
It was weird and it was kind of creepy. And then it was one of those situations where like I didn't behave normally, like just kind of went back to bed and then woke up later and like remembered that. Which of course, like if you read the literature, then we can get into like, is that a screen memory? Like what is that?
Yeah.
And then the third most like overwhelming experience was this sense of waking up in the middle of the night and seeing things at the foot of the bed, like what you could describe as looking like grays or ETs or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Personally, looking back now with like the kind of literature review I've done, I don't ever think I was abducted. I don't really think I'm an alien contactee. I found a lot of solace and contextualization in Graham Hancock's work. And that kind of spurred me into the direction of this is not maybe UFO hunting. Maybe there's like a kind of cross-cultural explanation for what we're working with. And of course, that segs directly into shamanic work, the occult, esoteric, etc.
Mm-hmm. It does. There's a link with owls and grays, right? So I don't know, are you an experiencer? Maybe you haven't been abducted, but usually those in the field, or whether it comes before or after, have had extra, terrestrial experiences of sorts. Everybody says, I fight with Amelia all the time. You've probably been abducted. No, I have not. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you've been abducted. No, I have not. Okay, you have not.
Yeah.
Because I'm just looking at Kat while you're going, I don't think I've been abducted. She's going.
Yeah, you're reading my face exactly correctly.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yes. It was honestly one of the things that like when I looked into doing the headless rite or any kind of like magical initiation, that some of the authors were like, oh, maybe you'll have some ET contact. And I was like, no, not that for me, which kind of just think like,
why does it
there's
unnerve
some kind of weird overlap and a lot of synchronicities around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our journey was very much shaped and driven by just trying to make sense of our own experiences. For me, I didn't grow up in a haunted house, but I always wished that I saw spirits or experienced ghosts when I was younger, in a way that someone who has never lived in a haunted house could wish.
Right. Well, you can come visit. This house is
Yeah,
haunted.
I would like to. Uh, So it was really a journey of seeking out these occult writers and sometimes mystic writers as well to really understand ourselves, honestly. Dan was very psychic. Starting when I first met you, I knew that there was something magical about you, but I didn't really know what it was. And now that we've learned about mediumship and intuition and being sensitive, I know, oh, that's what it was. So this journey was spurred on by understanding ourselves and ultimately mastering ourselves.
As best one can.
The journey definitely continues. I think that you'll always learn something. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm still in awe at the stuff that I'm learning, because it is out there. So how do we know for sure?
It is.
Yeah.
And it's continually surprising. I was just saying this in a event we had a few nights ago, where someone, at the beginning of our events, we always like to open the floor to let people share their paranormal experience, because I think a lot of people have paranormal experiences that they don't feel comfortable necessarily sharing because they think they're crazy or they think it's too out there. And as a preface, I've come to say, I share what you have to share, because every time I personally think that's out there, they're making it up, that's too weird, that sounds crazy, I'm immediately proven wrong by experiencing something similar myself. So I've just learned to say, hey, like, we're going to take each thing as it comes at face value and just kind of hold that intention and see what comes of it.
No, that's a good way to look at it. And so you grew up in this I guess pretty religious community, church. How does your family take all of it? Cat's like, I don't know. So,
yeah,
but for both of you,
it's interesting because and I've spoken about this before, that my family has a strong Pennsylvania Dutch background. And if you're familiar with the Pennsylvania Dutch or Appalachian culture, there are lots of pieces of magic woven into that. And like my family, I can point to very specific things that, even though they do not associate that with magic or with Appalachian craft or with any of the kind of magical traditions, it very clearly is. My grandmother in particular has a strong relationship to tending family graveyards. And to visiting that, making a point to visit all the relatives once a year and clean off their gravestones. And that is, yeah, it's beautiful. And she has a book and she can tell you where everybody's buried and how long they lived and where. And it's, when you read about it, you can clearly see, like, oh, this is very much, this is very much a portion of folk magic here.
It is. It's very Victorian. They were crazy into hanging in the cemeteries and picnicking and seances, and and like that's a thing. I've always done that.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah,
lots of things about specifically to someone in my family who this is going back many generations, actually used a pendulum and some dowsing rods to find oil in Pennsylvania and kind of made a small family fortune in that.
Nice.
This is many generations ago. But still, so these stories were around me, like hex signs and stories about people who would buy warts and that sort of thing, all very much around me.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
I love it.
Not, it was kind of like, well, that's old. Like, we don't really talk about that anymore. We have this kind of like, this
family secret. Don't talk about it.
Yeah. It was viewed with suspicion. And so for me, this has kind of been a journey of rediscovery, which I think a lot of mediums go through. There's this interest in genealogy and an interest suddenly in what our ancestors were doing and where we came from. And it's been fun to kind of plug that in. But it has been a journey. And I think there still is a lot of discomfort with, the occult and the fact that a family member might be dabbling.
Right.
Or professional.
Yeah, this one.
Very
Yeah.
publicly.
No.
Really publicly.
Yes, and my family has been pretty accepting. I have the benefit of being the youngest and the only daughter, so
Oh, so you get to do everything that everybody else couldn't
Yes.
do.
very true.
Right. So it's same as Amelia. All her brothers. Amelia got to do everything.
No curfews, nothing. I think my mom also had me at 41. I think she was just exhausted, right? There was 4 before me. So I think she was just like, whatever, do whatever you want. You're home, you're in one piece, that's great.
Yeah, my
But I
mom-
wasn't allowed to talk about mediumship or the family at all regarding that. That I wasn't allowed to discuss.
Hmm. So your family's very accepting, and you are evolving the way you want to be evolving with all of it, all of the information. Is it like information overload, or are you able to take it in quite easily? Because for me, it was just like you want it all, and you want it all right away. It's like it's snowball. It's like the snowball effect, you know. It's just you find something, and you just it just becomes like this, and it's like this, and then you're all these different directions.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it was like that, and that is part of the reason why we're here doing this as a career,
Right.
because we just can't get enough, and we know there will never be enough time for us to digest and really live through all of the material and thought on this. So it's inspirational, I think. We don't get too overwhelmed, I think, because we started out with some great authors that really helped us to kind of center our practice right away. But there's definitely space to evolve.
I'm always curious as to where this takes us because, you know, in starting, there's been such exciting like exploration and growth and connecting with people, practitioners who have been doing this for decades or investigators or what have you. And I always wonder, like, what will the next step be? Because right now, like, hosting seances and working as mediums it's everything I've ever wanted. But I'm still always wondering, like, what's that next wrinkle? Like, what's the next thing that gets uncovered? And you see that, like, throughout, like, obviously historical occult figures who start heading off in one very solid direction, and before long, they're way down a rabbit hole exploring something else. And I love that freedom. Growing up, I loved school. I loved this concept of doing as much learning as possible. I think we're both very bookish in that. And I mean, it's like getting to work in a library, but then also doing all the fun stuff that librarians can't do.
Right. No, for sure it is. For sure it is. Being into the, of course, seances and the age of spiritualism, have you guys ever been to Lilydale in upstate New York?
It's on our list. We really would love to go.
I've been. I have a lot of friends actually live there. You will love it.
We
try to go when they do the Victorian seances because everybody dresses up. They do table tipping, which is actually really easy to do if you've not tried it. But it gives you a real sense of belonging because it's where Harry Houdini would go to try to debunk spiritualism. And you had Abraham Lincoln and his wife who would go, you know, to try to communicate with their son. And it's just the history behind it. And the Fox sisters, of course, who founded everything, you know, like it really gives you that sense of, like, I always felt it's where, you know, I could belong, but it was also a place to just rejuvenate, just to settle down and, you know, and be among people who are exactly like you.
That's one of the things that always attracts me to it. I've heard from many people. I'm friends with a spiritualist minister in our local area. And everyone who speaks about it always says it has this wonderful thinness. There's a real sense that you're in a kind of a limbo space, like a space where things can easily come through, and some esoteric geography. Unfortunately, we were planning on going in 2020, and of course, we all know how that went.
Yeah.
But hopefully
Still
soon,
going.
hopefully 2022.
Yeah, they've been closed, just a few, little things, but it's one heck of a good time if you go. And if you do go, let me know, and I will connect you up with a friend of mine there who runs the museum
Oh, yes,
and the
please.
ghost tours and such. Yeah, he's just really, really informative, and it's just really wild to see. It's eccentric in a way, but it's just amazing. I think you guys would really dig it. Yeah. So what is it about then seances? Like, tell us how you're making this as a business. Like, I love seances personally. I think it's a lot of fun, but there's a right way, there's a wrong way,
Mhm.
and unfortunately now with social media, television, people don't really think about how to do it. They just jump on board and do it and then end up in a heap load of trouble.
Mhm.
Mm.
So your
Yeah.
perspective.
That's a good point. And I think there are many right ways and there are many wrong ways to do seances, or many things that I wouldn't do.
Mm.
And I agree that people tend to jump into certain things without certain magical things that they don't really think of as being magical, without really thinking it through or seeking out people to have knowledge of that certain subject. But what attracted us to seances was the spirit communication aspect, of course, but the ability to really share that with a group of people. Magic and occultism can feel very isolating at times, partially because it is countercultural, but also because, it's hard to find that group, your tribe, where you believe enough similarly that you can practice together. But when you're coming to a seance, you don't necessarily have to believe the same things. You just have to be there for the intention of experiencing spirit communication together. And we found it is such like an amazing, transformative, and empowering experience that we just wanted to keep doing it.
Exactly. When we first started getting into seances, for us, we didn't consider ourselves mediums, and we were interested in the trappings of it, the esoteric actions of it, and of course, the aesthetics are a beautiful. It's a beautiful sensory experience. In many ways, it can feel liturgical. It can feel kind of churchy, and when we were involved in it, it began to become something that we felt we had, messages coming through, but not simply someone at the top, someone at the front telling you these are the messages that are coming through. And that can certainly happen in a seance. That happens, frankly, in our seance. Kat and I, we've been doing it so long. We often receive a lot of messages for our guests. But we really stress that this is a place where we can share. This is a place where if you're a medium and you come to our seance, great. This is a space where we're all holding the same ritual intention. And so while we respect the spiritualist church and we love what spiritualism and spiritist thought has done, we view seances as really a non-denominational kind of ritual praxis. It is a magical action where we're gathering with similar intentions. And as such, there are right and wrong things that can be done. A big thing for us is protection. We always want people to feel very safe. And that's achieved
on multiple levels.
Exactly.
It's an emotional experience, and you don't want people like having a bad emotional experience with that too.
Exactly. So that's achieved two ways. I mean, as we're saying, like it's not only are there the ritual kind of casting of the circle, the banishings at the end that we feel are magically important. It's also then kind of taking away some of the scary like horror film stuff that people are a little nervous about, not because necessarily Ouija boards are bad, but because if we bring a lot of fear and apprehension into working with a Ouija board, it's not going to go so well. So we like to move things into a realm where people are comfortable, where it can be an experience, where we can share like liminal space, but also be healing and transformative, where valuable messages come through.
Right. So, go ahead, Amelia.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say that you want everybody's vibration, their frequencies to be really high. You bring a Ouija board in, you're going to attract lower level entities and because like you said, that whole fear-based thing, mindset's huge. So how do you prepare your guests to, like calm them if they're a little apprehensive?
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important for us to talk with everyone and make everyone feel comfortable expressing what might be worrying them that evening, because we do tend to do them in evenings. But we have a lot of, when we do public seances, we have a lot of people bringing people like spouses or friends that might be a little reluctant and may not have shared with the person they came with what actually might be holding them back, what might be concerning them. So we really, before we start any ritual working, we just talk with people.
Yeah, it's about breaking down the boundaries between people, which is, it's surprising how quickly people take to it. We live a kind of closed off life, especially more so now due to the pandemic than we did before.
Absolutely.
We're skeptical of other people. We don't want to share what's too close to the center. But it's interesting to watch once one person opens up, how many other people then feel comfortable to step forward and comfortable to share. And that's what really has always drawn me again to the seance, is going and seeing a fantastic medium do group readings for, hundreds to thousands of people is incredible and fun and very interesting. And it can be very rewarding. But it can also be very focused on the people up on the stage. You don't really know who you're sitting next to. You're kind of like, okay, get through that person because me next. I want to go next. And so to be in a seance where we're in this kind of environment where we're sharing, it really opens the door for really deeper communication with each other.
And it sets the vibe right, as you were saying, Amelia.
Yeah. It's also one of the things we like to do is really share with people. Not only can you share your story here, your paranormal story, but again, your beliefs for this ritual, for this moment, for this gathering, whatever they are, that's okay. Like if you're a skeptic, great. Just enjoy liminal space. See what it feels like when things are slightly askew. If you believe very strongly that you have spirits that follow you around everywhere, or spirits that you're in deep, close contact with, great. What happens when they come through tonight? Because it's about getting that energetic vibe to a place where people kind of trust one another.
And we share with them what is going to happen. And we make sure that everyone is comfortable with the different spirit communication techniques we're going to use that night. And I find it really sets things up for, honestly, success.
Right. So how do you break through the stereotypical stuff? I mean, let's face it, boys get a bad rap. I always say it's pretty much, again, like taking an unlicensed driver and putting them behind the wheel of a car. If you don't know what you're doing, anything's, any situation can go bad. So how do you break through with that? Because they do get a bad rap. I mean, everywhere. I've seen really seasoned mediums in the field for a really long time run into trouble because they think they're communicating with something that's not there, like a really good mimic. So how can you filter through?
Yeah. For us, the first thing that we want to make sure that we're doing is allowing people to engage with the tools. And we don't want to use things that look stereotypically Hollywood seance.
Right.
So like if we're using a spirit board, it's going to be one that is made from a practitioner who we trust, who we like, and doesn't look like the Hasbro, Walmart, iterations of spirit boards. And then there's a discussion about it, essentially. That this is an interesting historical tool, and we're going to try some things with it and see what comes out of it. But this is not the end-all, be-all. And we cycle through multiple tools. So at first, we're just going to have that conversation where everyone gets to know each other. Then we might move into some pendulum work where it's very simple, binary, yes, no, the difference between moving it yourself, having a spirit move it, the idea motor response, getting people to kind of parse out those different feelings so that they can say, wait a second, there is something different happening here.
Right.
And then moving that over to like a glass moving session.
Yes.
I know those are fun. That's personally my favorite when I do them is the glass.
People
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is quite a feeling. People don't, and again, kids who are listening, don't try this unless you know what you're doing. But it really is an interesting feeling to just have it moving by itself. Without your fingers on it, just watching it go. I've had glasses come up to me and just start rubbing up along my arm, and I'm just sitting here like this and thinking, that's impressive. It is an interesting feeling. But again, kids, don't be trying this at home.
Kids, adults.
That's what I'm talking about, kids,
Yeah.
not everybody.
Yeah,
Right?
because
No, it's
October's
true.
already busy for us as it is.
Mm.
Yeah.
We have to clear those. We're in trouble.
Yes. So that one, for me, that one had the most impact in learning. So I would imagine that would be pretty popular. The boards are pretty typical, but there's just something about how the energy comes through the glass.
Yes.
It gets amplified.
People always say well, I won't want to say always because there are different reactions, of course.
Of
But
course.
it's a common thing to hear someone say, it felt like something reached out and grabbed the glass and moved it. And I
Yeah.
always think like, well, what did we expect? But also,
I know.
yes, it is so uncanny. It is so weird.
Mhm. But for them, it's just because they see it on TV, they see it in movies, and then they think, oh, someone's pulling a string. But when you hand them a pendulum or you show them the glass, how it moves on their own, that experience is just, it's priceless. And it's a great way to deal with skeptics. I thought it was amazing, incredible that you guys hand over a pendulum because they can see that I'm not, teetering this one way or another. This is really happening on its own. Do you ever have guests who want to perhaps use an app from their phone? Have you ever had that request?
I think so.
Yes, we have that request come through pretty. It honestly happens most frequently via email. People will email us Tuesday night and say, "Can I bring this? Can I bring that?" Our response to that is no. We'll provide all the tools for you. If it comes up in the actual events, again, I don't necessarily want to stop people from experimenting. But we do try and provide a time and place for it. So if the evening is progressing very well and there's a lot of activity or the spirits seem to be taking us in a particular direction, maybe we will experiment with that and give them the opportunity. But I feel like it introduces a little bit too much. What's the word I'm looking for?
Commercial.
Commercialism. Exactly. And
I love what you have already set up for your guests. That authentic experience, what you're offering is beautiful. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I love it. I love that you're I think technology gets in the way too often now in this field, and it's nice to see someone do it in media. Yeah. But it's nice to see that the two of you are taking it way back and keeping that tradition. I think it's lovely.
We're going back to the roots.
Yes.
And
I love
think
that.
That's where with technology, I agree, Amelia, because there are so many gadgets and you can do divination even with electronic equipment now. It's just, but there's something about like putting yourself back in time and seeing how the Victorians did it, the whole movement. And that's what started it, really, the interest, I think, on this side of the world.
I think so. And there's like a kind of theory of mind that goes along with bringing electronic stuff in. Again, I'm not opposed to it.
Right.
But the more we bring in apps and equipment, infrared devices, etc., the conversation moves away in many cases from what are the messages? What is Spirit telling us? To how can I measure this? How can I prove that it happened? How can I point to it on like a printout and say this is when Spirit happened?
Right.
And I think that's valuable, but it can sometimes be very misleading and it can be misplaced.
Well, and then we were just talking about people's experience with glass moving.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience is very visceral. It's in your own hands.
Mm-hmm.
And the technology you're using, it's being operated by you, but it's not as personal or something you can touch in that way as these other tools that are older.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. It's true. Have you dabbled in table tipping or table walking?
Yes, we have, but not in our
Somewhat.
not in our seance work.
Yeah, I think
done it ourselves
that
a
would
few
wig a few
times.
people out, but it's pretty impressive.
It is.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
We need to do that. How can we be friends this long and we've never done that? You've done it, but I mean
to my
together.
house, you had an amazing night your first time here.
I know.
To put
I'm
a
like,
freaking show on. Give me a break.
no, I'm just surprised. We've been friends for a few years, and we've never done it together. We've done a lot of different crazy
Pandemic
stuff.
hasn't helped, but no, table
No,
walking,
that's true.
table tipping. I had a long dining room table, just going from one end of a large dining room to another. I've had it off the floor. I go, piece of
Love
cake.
that.
Seriously, it's just a technique. That's all.
Exciting.
But a very strong spirit too, which is not usually human, because allegedly human spirits don't have the energy to be able to manifest or lift something very, very heavy. So in my experience of all my years, seeing, large pieces of furniture go flying across the room has not usually been a human spirit. They're a little bit more gentle in how they communicate. They're not necessarily always trying to, have you run out of the house. I would be yet to see that happen here. Our spirits are very gentle. But even table tipping, I think with enough people energy, you can do it. Watching the mediums at Lilydale, again, it's fascinating because you have a group of people and there's several tables, and it was very strange to me just sitting and observing, because I'm an observer. I can do this stuff myself. And when you're seeing about like 7 or 8 tables just moving, like literally, like some of them are just going like this, like they're walking, and they're going all over the room. It's like it doesn't get better than that. So, it's a lot of fun. People had a lot of fun. And some people were really scared. So I could see where you guys are going to run into that little bit of an issue. Some people are afraid of everything, let alone throw something really out of the norm. It's not natural for something to start moving by itself.
Yeah.
No.
Right. And some people are just like, no, that's just not a thing. Right. You just can't convince them.
Depending on where you live. If I have never been or participated in a seance, and I can tell the two of you, I would be honored to be at your table.
Oh, thank you.
Especially because, like I said, you're so traditional in that way. It would be such an amazing experience.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And it is often a question for us of like how much, how long, how can we, like the mundane aspects of holding a seance. How long should this go? How many things should we try? Because if it were up to Kat and I, like just us,
Right.
yes, we would be doing as much as we possibly could. We would have a section and now we're going to go to the Frank's box and just do that.
Again, good times there too.
Yeah, that's a different experience.
It is. Yeah. Oh,
That's a different experience.
There is.
Yeah.
But there is a real element then of how do we make this something that is a great primer for people, a gateway in the way that it was for us. Ultimately, that's what we want, is that gateway for people to say, I can do this too. This is incredible.
To experience something that's so out of the norm for many people.
Do you teach your guests protection when they come in?
We always have to do this because it keeps coming up. So many DMs we get on Instagram from people who have issues or who have had bad experiences, and they will tell us they've been a practicing witch for X amount of years, or they're practicing occultist, and then we ask them about daily banishing rituals, and there are none. And so we're like, we have to go and do this.
I know. Do you run into situations where you hear back from someone who's been at one of your events saying, something followed me home, come and get it out of here, this is your fault?
This is your fault.
I didn't know what I was doing.
That's a personal favorite. This is your fault.
That's true. You know what you're doing? I don't.
That hasn't happened yet. Thank
Good.
No.
That's
Excellent.
amazing.
Yes,
You're
excellent.
doing everything right.
Yeah, we do like a banishing at the end, of course, and then afterwards, after we've wrapped up the ritual, we do another sort of checking in with the group and seeing how they're feeling. So no one's walking away like internally, like I'm scared right now or I'm feeling something. They're going to express that to us while we're there with them.
Excellent.
No, that's excellent. There's a comment for you guys here. Renee. Yeah.
Do you want me to read
You can
it?
read it. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. It's right up there. Everybody
like,
receive it.
Oh my gosh, yes. I have at objects, tables, beds, etc. Move here in she's at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. I wasn't even doing a seance either. The spirits here are very helpful. They moved an old typewriter. That is so funny. Table closer to me that I had a paint pen, on, and I was on a step ladder and was reaching far out for the paint. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my glasses. I'm sure they were worried I would fall. That's sweet.
Yeah,
that's sweet. Zach had a negative spirit follow me home. I want to speak to your manager. Just kidding.
Yes.
No, it's definitely interesting. I want to back up before we get too far because we did have a comment here from Mary.
There's a question. Yes, I saved that one there. I've got that one there.
Yep.
She wrote, in the last few months since my mom died, my condolences, Mary, for your loss. I'm so sorry. I have had a lot of scary UFO and abduction dreams. Is there a link? And between hauntings and UFOs.
Yes.
Well, that's a great question.
Historically speaking, yes.
Right.
And anthropologically speaking, yes. There's a lot of overlap between like spaces that people have seen orbs in or have seen spirits in, and there have been sightings of UFOs in that area. There's a lot of overlap between those things. But I've also heard people tell us about, suddenly becoming more intuitive or realizing that they are a medium or psychic after an event like this, after something emotional, like a death of a loved one comes to pass. So that doesn't actually surprise me. I hope that she's not feeling too disturbed by it because it's a normal thing. It does happen to many people.
Yeah. I would, and maybe it's my own experience speaking with this, but I always, when I'm speaking with people who kind of bring these things to the fore, that someone passes and that it maybe had a spirit interaction and then all of a sudden had some of these negative experiences. It's possible that this is a UFO phenomena as we think about it in, extraterrestrial contact. It's also possible that this is the way that we're processing that event and that spirit contact. It's kind of a gateway, if you will, has been opened. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a negative, like ET's coming to get you. It may simply be this opening of the channel and then us trying to frame it because we don't have the linguistic framework to work with it, to understand what this is. And I know for me, personally speaking, when I had my kind of really scary experiences, once I stepped into this world of understanding this as an introduction to spirit contact, and it could be something that was beneficial and could be something beautiful, the situation changed very quickly. And then it kind of fell into a kind of processed, okay, so this is a spirit that wants to speak with me, not a nightmare kind of scenario. But that can be very traumatic and very difficult because we don't have the linguistic tools.
Yeah,
that's true.
Or the cultural knowledge. I mean, in the U.S., we're very bad with death generally, and we don't really tend to practice much death rites. Now that there are many exceptions with specific religious groups, and people have recently come into the United States, but generally for many people, it's you kind of left lost. Like, what do I do now?
No, I agree. I think sometimes too, just wanting so desperately to communicate with someone that you've lost will open doors also.
Mm,
Um, okay, there's more messages. There we go. There's Dolly.
Yeah, I can see it easier on here.
ETs will follow people here.
Sorry.
Oh, I did
Yeah.
not know that. Will be present for their passing. It's the
That
passage
I
that they
didn't
honor.
know.
No,
I've never heard that before, but that's
thanks
a
for that,
interesting
Dolly.
concept.
yeah.
Dolly would know. Dolly's had some
Dolly's,
crazy experiences.
Dolly's,
Yeah,
we had Dolly on the show. Dolly's an incredible
yeah. Dolly's like an ET
contact.
magnet.
Yes.
So,
We love it.
okay. And then Renee.
I
Okay.
participated in a seance some time back and was overcome by a woman that was looking for her child.
That would
Her
be
child
hard.
had passed. I could feel her loss, and I cried uncontrollably for about 50 minutes. I wish I could have helped her.
That's the empath in you. Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need a little time for both
Yeah.
you and the spirit. Sometimes it takes a little time.
That's got to be something you come across a lot though with seances is the emotion behind all of it. You know, people either being overwhelmingly in awe or sad or you know, like what do you I find it difficult to deal with people who are breaking down because it's so different for all of us.
Yeah. I think
Well,
the
you've
good
had
thing about seances, and yes, I have had an experience
Yes.
here, but I think that when people are sad, there's almost a happiness to it when you're in our seance, at least, because people are still often grieving, but they are also realizing that they can connect to these people that they desperately wanted to connect to. So there's both sorrow, but also kind of a deep joy. So it's intensely emotional. And we do have to take a lot of time and space and really be in touch with those people as they're experiencing those emotions. And I know for us it can be, Dan was about to mention the time where as a medium, I try not to get too emotional because then I lose part of what I'm doing, which is conveying messages and really being present for that person. But there was one experience that was just, it wasn't even a sad one. It was just so loving, and the spirit was so loving that I just cried.
Yeah. I think
it happens. It happens.
Really beautiful, actually.
and equipping people to recognize that before we get into that portion of a seance, because we can count on in a seance people having at least someone is going to have a very emotional experience. It may be me, it may be Kat, it may be someone there. And to help them frame that so that when it happens, if it does to them, that you have an emotional experience and you feel this, what does this ultimately mean? And some of the things Kat points out are correct. Like there's a survival of consciousness. We're connecting with something here that is the spirits can have a lot of emotion and understanding the difference between their emotion and yours. So it's okay if you feel overwhelmed and you feel like you have to cry, that's okay. But you also can recognize and know before it happens that that doesn't necessarily mean that's your feelings. And I think sometimes we don't necessarily make that distinction in the world of the paranormal, especially in mediumship. People kind of tend to couch things as it's me, it's coming from me, it's attached to me. And there's a little bit of wiggle room where we can kind of parse these out. And then giving people, of course, time as a group to, if someone's having an emotional experience, for everyone to sit with and support that person, talk to that person, not just leave them in a corner to kind of work it out themselves.
That's not a good thing. No, you end up with a much bigger problem after that. So, no, I agree with you. That does tend to be, it can be very, very overwhelming. You know, I've done a lot of bereavement stuff with people through the years, and it's, who've wanted to make contact. And I agree with you also, getting readings, you're almost, no matter how good the person is, it's a matter of, unless they really hit on something that you can make a connection, you're really taking that person's word for it. And there are some amazing mediums out there. I've worked with fantastic mediums throughout the world. And there are some who really shouldn't be practicing, because their intentions, it's mindset, and their intentions are more for themselves or not for the people that they're assisting. So, with that being said, mediumship, it is possible for everyone. I truly do believe, and some people don't believe this. I believe that we're all born with abilities, that extra sense or those extra senses that just need to be awakened, and people just need to be guided. And it seems to be what you're doing. You're helping people wake up. You've heard me say this a million times. I know it. I'm going to say it again to everybody who's listening. But we are the species with amnesia. We just don't seem to. We come here not always knowing what we're capable of.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to be sort of led into it.
And that's been a bit of like our mission, if you will, to equip people to recognize it. They do have the ability to do mediumship, to be a medium.
Right.
Now, that may not look like evidential mediumship. That may not look like physical mediumship.
Right.
And that was a big point for us of going back to the seance and like looking at the Victorian seance to like the early turn of the century, where there are all these different tools being used.
Yeah.
Like you might not get great readings of pendulums. You might be great at scrying.
Or automatic reading.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different spirit communication techniques that reflect the different ways that we communicate, the different ways that our brain works, that our bodies work. As many differences there are in between us among people are like the many possibilities of receiving messages from spirit.
We have someone who works with us very closely. We have a seance coven that we run. And for 6 months, we work with a group of people and teaching them how to do seances. And it's also mediumship and psychic development, exploring techniques. And this person came to us, and I'm forgetting the exact term. It's on the tip of my tongue. The tip of my tongue, excuse me.
Well, it's where you...
But it's where it's a psychological and visual condition where you cannot actually visualize things.
Okay.
And she had a struggle with this because she said so many books I buy are like visualize the white orb or visualize this.
Sure, you can't.
I medically can't do that. Like I cannot visualize.
Oh, that's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, my imagination does not work that way. And there's an actual term, and I wish I could remember it. But it was a whole process of working with her to discover what did work for her. And she became very aware of what she was feeling in her body and touch sensation and asking binary questions and feeling things on certain portions of her and what that would mean. But she really felt that she couldn't be a medium simply because all the literature was like visualize.
A specific type of experience, but there are so many other experiences that you can have.
Yeah, they're clairsentient with the hearing. Everybody has a different gift, a different strength.
Yeah.
And I would imagine if you can't visualize that, you're probably a lot stronger on hearing or feeling or knowing. You're probably a lot stronger on something else.
Exactly.
Wow, I never heard of that.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the term for it.
I'll look it up after because you've got my curiosity stoked. I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, just throw it out there when it comes to you. It might be random, but that's all right.
You know that now because one hate being a person that Google's on the show. Just saying. Hope no one's listening.
No.
It's just like there has to be a deficiency somewhere in that connector of the brain. Is it aphantasia? Renee is asking. Is it aphantasia?
Aphantasia. That's what it is.
There you go. Thanks, Renee. I'm not the host who Googled. Thanks, Renee.
Our listeners are incredible.
There we go.
Love you,
never
Renee.
remember that. No.
Aphantasia. Just think Disney.
Yes.
Disney.
Kind of. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Fantasia. Aphantasia. You can't fantasize. That makes sense. So simple. I thought it was going to be some really tough medical term that gives me visions of Mickey Mouse, but that's great. That's terrible for someone who has that.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's like if you don't know, you don't know. And like her ability to feel things is something I've never really experienced.
Yes.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. We'll
Yeah,
say
there
that.
we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Dolly
hope one
wrote,
day.
no, her pineal gland works, but her physical brain has a misconnection. Yeah. No, I mean terrible in the sense of not terrible that she can't function, terrible in the sense of all the struggle that she went through, you know, thinking this is it, I can't do this. Your consciousness is
Separate.
Well,
separate.
we
Thank
find
you.
that so often people, and I don't think they mean to, but many people will almost fixate on a perceived limitation that they have and think that they can't move forward. And so a lot of, I think, our work as mediums and seance hosts are to say, you have permission to experiment with this and you totally can do it.
Well, their path is to connect with you. There's a reason for everything, right? And right now, people listening, you've probably assisted who knows how many people listening right now that have the same affliction. And I think it's fantastic that you're getting it out there. Awareness is everything.
It is.
Hopefully,
You know.
So working with seances is one obviously a very large aspect of what you guys do, because it's a career as well, right? So do you do paranormal investigations? How do you incorporate all of that? 'Tis the season, after all. I have to throw that in there.
Yes.
We do sort of consultations. I as imagine you do as well. People come to us with problems that they're dealing with. We can generally help them out. And then we do some investigations as well, just exploring of what's going on in a space.
And what we found is we generally fill a need for an investigative team in the way that many mediums do. But they particularly look to us at this point for the historical background, and some of the tools and approaches that may have fallen out of vogue, great word, and also some of the esoteric and kind of occult ideas behind some of this stuff.
Right.
Because oftentimes when we work with paranormal investigations, it's very much like a kind of ghost hunter mentality, which is great for finding maybe paranormal proof or finding proof of ghosts.
As close as you can get, I suppose, right?
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
But lacking sometimes some of the concepts around, well, for example, in one of our most recent paranormal investigations, the owner of this location had a particularly troublesome kind of spirit. It was more or less acting out. And there was a lot of anxiety wrapped up in that whole case, and a lot of fears around being misplaced and some super huge anti-structure. And the paranormal team who he had first invited in were like, we need to cross this spirit over. We just need to help it find the light. And it didn't do anything. It didn't take. The reason why was the spirit wasn't in need of being crossed over. It actively wanted to be there. This space had become its space in maybe a more real way than it had been during its life. It just needed affirmation, and it needed a space to exist. And it needed to know that it was the building, the structure, whatever it had attached itself to, was not being stolen from it. And so we applied a concept that's very popular in witchcraft of leaving a bottle of alcohol, a libation, as an offering, and giving it its own space. The third floor was essentially entirely abandoned. It's not used for anything. The owners have no plans to use it for anything. We said the third floor is yours. Here is an altar. We build you a little altar. We leave you a bottle of libation. You get the third floor. And the activity ceased. So that's kind of the perspective that we hope to bring.
No, that's I love hearing, different perspectives and different techniques, because it would make you think, well, the spirit doesn't need to be crossed. So most people would say, well, are they crossed already? Or because there is a big belief that, not every spirit should be, that we don't always have the right to cross them. That's where it gets funky in the field. I always sort of think, well, I think it depends on the spirit. If it's a child, well, you're going. Because it's a mother in me. You're not wandering around this big dark place by yourself, But people would say, but if they had moved on, they wouldn't feel the need to want to have to exist and fight for a space, because then they could come back and forth as much as they want.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on that, if you have any?
Well,
Because
it
that's pretty controversial
It
within
is.
the field. Yeah.
did take quite a long time to come to what we thought would be the best solution.
Yeah.
And part of that was our hours-long communication with them and seance with that spirit. But it also came from, we are acquainted with the spirit.
Yes.
We had met her, I think, a couple years before this.
Right.
So we were already familiar with her needs and understood where she was coming from. I think if we were, just meeting the spirit and we were trying to resolve it more quickly, maybe things would have been different. But I think ultimately our solution worked out well.
I think it was a element of the relationship that we had built that we understood. And then also, again, that kind of historical knowledge of the space and what the space was to this person and why maybe they would not only want to stay there, but also feel like they had to. And whether we had, as you said, the right to kind of kick them out the door, especially if there was not really so much concern about the compatibility between the spirit being in the space and the current owners or the activities that were there. That was all fine, and we know it had been for quite some time.
Right.
It was just kind of these recent, there was a recent renovation. There was, like I said, some heavy anti-structure with the office hours and things changing for the location. And it was really about giving whatever the spirit needs, the time it needs. And that time can be different. I like to think
What is time? What is time?
What is time?
Time doesn't really exist. We're slaves to a clock. That's it. Does it really exist?
Exactly.
So, yeah, it allegedly moves very different, I think, for the dead or interdimensional beings than it does for here in the physical realm. So it's kind of tough. I always struggle with that one myself, because it's just, I've had people in pain, just like this, want to fixate so much and stay in one spot. It's like, no, we're going to move you over and then you can come back. Yeah. And they come back, and all of a sudden, let's say the dementia's gone, whatever the physical, as long as they're stuck or they're grounded, they still have the baggage. So for me, I think it's always been about removing the baggage, and then you come back free as a bird, no baggage.
Right.
I like that you can come back and they're like, are you sure?
I know it's true.
Are you sure? Because I don't want to, the biggest one is I don't want to leave my family, or I don't want to leave my wife or my husband.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you have free will to come back and forth. And that's when you'll see a complete difference. I believe that you need to ask the question. Yeah. Sometimes they don't know that they can move. They think they can't. So I think it's important to give them that choice.
That's a really good point. And I think sometimes there's a need on the half of the people who work in the paranormal field to achieve an end, to be like, okay, we need to do X or Y and we need to get this checked off a list.
They forget everything in between.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think at some point we have to decide if we're working with conscious entities or not. Good and point. If it is a survival of consciousness, if it is a conscious entity, then that entity still has choice and a life, and we need to have some kind of operative framework of consent. And these are things that I really hope that the spiritual medium community continues to develop and work on.
Yeah.
It's something it's a process for everyone.
It is, I've been doing this almost 2 decades and I still struggle with it. It's hard because for me, I feel like I'm leaving them behind.
Yeah.
But they don't all want to go. That's the way it is.
Someone tore a strip off of me because I crossed children.
Really?
And I'll never forget that. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was the first time that I had ever heard someone say to me, "You don't have the right to cross them over." And I just was like, sit down. We need to talk.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a mom.
Uh-huh.
And it's not even
it's
about being a
hard.
mom. It's a child doesn't, most of the time, they don't know they've passed away. If they've passed before any grandparent, I guarantee you, they are not walking into that light unassisted. And, and they don't know that they're stuck. They're literally grounded and stuck. And it's just really, it's one that I will never back down from.
Yeah.
I will always make sure that they cross, and that's just the way it is.
It's so hard because when you're sort of grounded here, you are that little child. Whereas when you go over, you could be that adult. If you believe in reincarnation, you can be more evolved energy. That's where it gets hard. But there's some really good statements coming in. Like, I mean,
yes,
this one here,
gotta do
this is their space as much as ours. It is.
I just think you need to give them a choice, but sometimes to respect their right to be here. We do respect their right, Dave, to be here, but we have to give them a choice. Jolly's asking, do you teach others the process during someone's passing to teach others how to assimilate the journey?
We don't actually teach that process. I think for some people it's going to look different than others. And we try not to get too involved in like death doula work or that kind of integrated process of death and dying yet.
We'd have people that refer to.
Because we can't be all things. And so for us, our work is oriented in the after. And maybe not even so much in the after of the connection, because we do the connection and the mediumship of bringing spirits that people know, or bringing messages, or ferrying those messages, however you want to put that. But when we're involved in the seance, and this is something we've had to talk about, I think, with a lot of folks, especially as we've been talking more on like internet shows and that sort of thing, that I'm always impressed and surprised at the way in which the grieving interact with seances. Because growing up, I was like, my idea of seances was that they were all hoaxes and that it was people being predatory and like preying on the grieving.
Right.
While there are sometimes very grief-stricken individuals who come looking for answers, most of the attendees seem to have integrated that in some way already, worked through that to some degree. Maybe they've had readings or processes to go through this before. So for us, and again, this may change, it's really focused on that kind of after liminal space kind of messages, and less so about the preparatory process to go through that crossing passage.
I've got to
makes sense.
squeeze in and pull out a station ID here.
And now comes the cup. I'm like,
out comes the cup. That's this
There it
way I'm not
comes.
cutting anyone off.
all right.
You're listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and myself, Amelia Pisano. Tonight, our special guests. What a great night. We have Kat and Dan Eckhart here. Am I saying your last name correctly? Eckhart.
You are.
Okay, perfect. We are live from New Orleans, the gorgeous city of New Orleans, 105.3 FM, and we are streaming for you on UFO Paranormal Radio as well as International Public Radio. And you can find us on a whole other slew of Facebook pages as well, including Canada's Most Haunted and our own, The Outer Realm. We are UPRN Talk Radio, and our new intro and outro was created for us by the incredible, amazing, award-winning Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, who is just phenomenal. And Michelle, where can you find his music?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. You can Google and you can find him everywhere. And of course, our other sponsors are the amazing people at Folgers Coffee. Thank you so much, Folgers. No one loves you more than Michelle and I. And thank you, Justin Snicker.
Truth. We are back.
Yes.
That was a business done. Okay. So I do like your perspective. It's very fresh. And for me, that's very refreshing because I've been in the field a really long time. I've seen a lot of real crazy stuff. I've seen a lot of really amazing stuff. I've got great people, that I can call friend and colleagues, and others I just leaves me scratching my head. So it's really nice to see. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So getting back to I guess the occult, because we've hit on investigating, we've hit on seances. So what do you want to tell us all about your journey into the occult?
Sure.
That's your show. You lead it.
It came through specific authors. And for me, my path was looking at indigenous traditions, specifically of the United States, that really reflect a connection and reverence for nature in a way that is deeply needed for our society, our world right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I found so much value in that I wanted to really seek out that sort of more pagan tradition in my own ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
I am Irish and English, so I looked into Druidry from that point.
Oh, cool.
And found that super cool. I really love
it. Is Druidism is amazing.
Yeah.
It's really valuable. It's super uplifting. It's super connecting.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't stop there. There's something about me that just wanted to learn more and more about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of took a bungee jump into chaos magic. I don't know how you get from
that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, can you explain chaos magic for our audience who doesn't know or hasn't? Because I think I've seen that once on a paranormal show in the last 20 years. So
yes. So there are lots of schools of thought around what chaos magic is exactly. But for us, our introduction and work through it was very much informed by Gordon White's work. Gordon White is probably, I think he calls himself the Dark Prince of Chaos Magic. That pretty much sums him up. He advocates for a view of magic that is stripping away the things that don't work, the kind of trappings, the feelings of dogma, the hearsay, and working from a position of, does this magic ritual work? And if it doesn't, then why am I still doing it? Sometimes chaos magic is criticized for being appropriative. Sometimes it's criticized for being very oriented towards mathematics and a maybe somewhat flawed understanding of quantum theory.
And too focused on outcomes.
Exactly.
You really need a metaphysics paired with it. Now we're getting in the details.
Now we're getting in the weeds. And so the kind of solution to that, as offered by Gordon, is applying the ideas of chaos magic, do these rituals work, with then a metaphysics of mutual flourishing and some kind of environmental component. Animist lens. Yeah. So you can see kind of how Druidry would inform a modern approach to...
It's a strange marriage.
It is. But it works. So for us... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm glad that you're explaining it, because I know the first time I heard it, and I'm a medium, and I didn't know, I had to look that up. And that's why I thought, just in case.
Yeah. And it is a very valid question that I think we need to ask ourselves, especially as magical practitioners, as occult practitioners. Why am I doing this if it's not achieving results?
Right.
And that,
it's all about the journey, though, right?
Right. So, and then stepping back from achieving the results, what is the journey? What can we plug back in that feels spiritually beneficial? Not just about opening up job opportunities or increasing my paycheck or getting that car I want.
Right.
What is then the metaphysics of the soul and how I work and exist within the spirit realm?
Mm-hmm.
So
evolution.
We've never abandoned chaos magic. maybe it's become a little bit more refined as we've grown through looking through like Hermetic philosophy or looking through ritual magic, of course, Crowley and Spare, and those kinds of individuals who blazed the way in our view of magic. But pathworking is a process, and it's difficult, and
It's lovely.
it's lovely.
Wow. Dave says, Dan and Kat, do you think the Druids were also in North America?
I have to be honest here, I don't know. I was more interested in studying modern Druidry, which certainly is out of that tradition of veneration of knowledge and serving your community and working with nature. But I haven't dove.
I know how you feel. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Into the history.
Right. Oh.
I don't know. It's so hard to know what the original, like what are the original Druids? Like what is the original Druid kind of ideas and philosophies, and where were
definitely UK based, Ireland, Scotland, yeah.
Well,
I think what stands out to me is the kind of shared, again, animist beliefs between what we do know of the Druids and what we do know of indigenous cultures, and this kind of interwoven and connected origin story, origin philosophy, antique philosophy. And picking at that, I think, has always been part of what the occult has always been about. Like, what is that? What is that original belief, and how best can we know it?
Now, I truly believe you almost have to go back to the roots of everything to get an understanding of where, it's going. I'm a diehard, like, ancient history, like, researcher, so I love that stuff. But I think you have to get a really big understanding of the past to try to delve into. Did I do that, or did you do that?
No, I didn't touch it.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Stop it.
We're doing that seance thing. Instead of the glass, we got the mouse moving. Yeah.
I didn't even no. I'm just like...
I didn't touch it.
Whatever will get our attention.
Absolutely. Open-minded. I love that.
Great. Oh, yeah. You never know. You never know what's going to happen here when we're on the air. Things wandering around. Every now and then people say, somebody walked behind you. I just saw a shadow. I just heard a noise. I heard a voice. It's like,
there's a flash of light. It's like, yeah, I got it later. I'll get it later. You can't do much when you're live.
Right.
No.
You can't turn around and say, I banish you,
Just you get used to it. You really can coexist. Yeah, you really can coexist with spirits. Okay, so Druidism, I find it absolutely fascinating. So as you're going through that, how deep down the rabbit hole do you go, I guess is probably the best way to put it, because the occult is like vast. How do you know which way you want to go?
Yeah. For me, I haven't really made a proper choice, and that's working well for me. Thankfully, I am seeing more and more people who practice calling themselves eclectic witches, and I find that category really resonates with where I am right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to choose yet.
See, that's just it, right? Once you do that, you really have to expand on it once you make that decision.
Well, and it is, I can see the positive side of choosing, because then you can really devote your time towards getting into the ritual and the philosophy of that.
Right.
But in my younger years, I did tend to jump into things quickly, and thankfully I did generally stay with them. But now that I'm, a little bit older, I kind of do want to stand in that liminal space and enjoy that.
Right.
Yeah. There's Mitch Horowitz writes about this idea of anarchic magic or anarchic practice. And I think it's he's trying to do, I think, his best to kind of bring chaos magic from the kind of late 80s, early 90s into a space that's more more eclectic witchcraft, essentially. But for people who are not comfortable calling themselves witches for the various reasons. I don't call myself a witch as a, as a cis white guy. I don't feel like I
You'd be surprised.
I know. And more power
Mhm.
to the people who want to do that. Like, I do think the occult, the messages, the lessons of these magical practices, of these hidden things, of this hidden knowledge, is the journey of self, and is the journey of self-discovery and self-actualization. So moving towards choosing a space is something that I often struggle with and think like, I need a label. I need to call myself something. It would be easier if I could just say I'm a
But
fellow.
why label it though?
Whatever.
Yeah, why label it? It just limits you. It's also one of those things that gets a bad rap. People think the occult, dabbled in the occult. It's just like
Right away goes. They go
you
right
know,
away
it's just
to
really
the
does get a
red
bad
devil
rap.
and the pitchfork. I know.
It does. It
Sometimes
does.
people need the label, not so much us.
Yeah, but how do you pull away from that when people look at you and say, "Oh, you're into the occult"? It's very hard to educate people. Like, it's not all gloom and doom, and it's not all darkness, and it really is pretty fascinating. It's just a part of the ancient ways.
Yeah.
And that's hitting the nail on the head right now. It's not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily good. It certainly can be, and I think it's a wonderful tool for good.
Depends on the person, right?
Others.
Right.
Yes, but it's eclectic in and of itself, and it has both darkness and light in it. And I love both parts. I mean, speaking aesthetically, I love
It's the balance.
things too.
Yes.
And I think that's a big reason why we continue to stick with the term occultist publicly, to be a public occultist, because we've had the conversations. We've had the conversations with people who want to market for us or do publicity, and they're like, "Can't you just say you're a medium?" Like that, we can sell tickets.
Everybody's a medium. No, we can't say that.
I just put medium up there because it's easier than explaining it all. But my biggest pet peeve is psychic medium. I'm like,
we're done.
Yeah.
Right, but they don't understand that, and the only way they recognize it is by psychic medium, because that's what they see on television, and that's what they go to when they book their readings. They don't realize that a medium has visions and can communicate with spirit, where a psychic has visions. So that's a whole other show.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the importance of like the labels and what we mean by what we say. So staying with the term occultist has kind of become a little bit of a rally cry for the two of us. It does give us an opportunity to, be with a family who are devout Roman Catholics, who are trying to contact grandma and really want to have a spiritual connection, and to explain to them that we can do that. Like, we can all do that together. And just because I say I'm an occultist does not mean I'm going to pull out a statue of Baphomet. Like,
but which is ancient God.
Things that matter to you.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's been it's been useful, and it's been surprising to see the people who maybe started out saying, "Oh, those Eckharts, they're doing witch stuff," and then come around to be like, "They're actually really cool, and they're not that different than me." So
right. No, it's true. It's true. I think when you title things, it labels you for sure, and I think unfortunately people just aren't educated. Working in darkness for a lot of years, people just assumed that's exactly what I was. Then they meet you, you go, "You're nothing like I thought." Really? What exactly were you thinking? So, so I think that's, you're fighting the labels, you're fighting the opinions and people who aren't educated. Yeah, media, movies, again,
Yeah.
So
people look at us like they look at book covers, and you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover. I don't know if along the way you lost any friends. I grew up Roman Catholic and lost a lot of friends when I call it coming out of the closet, because I've had this my whole life. How was it for you? I know you said that your family support you, but how was it for you with friends?
Yeah,
We lost some
We
friends.
lost
Right.
some friends, but it wasn't. We had changed so much to allow ourselves to even consider being a cultist by that point that it was just the
You
friendship.
outgrow people.
Yeah,
Once
you
again.
evolved
You do.
Yeah.
past
You
them.
evolve.
You evolved past them. Michelle reminds me of that all the time.
Evolution. Not everybody
Yeah.
can come on your journey.
Yeah.
It's your journey is meant to go in a different direction, and it's always sad to leave someone behind. But if they're not meant to catch up, they're just not meant to catch up. You can just hope one day that they will.
Yeah.
As time
They-
goes by, it doesn't bother you though as much, does it? You realize that it's okay.
You're asking them on international radio if they feel bad about losing people.
No,
in your
no,
life.
I know.
No.
No,
I'm
it's-
just curious. I'm curious. I ask everybody who goes into this work because I had lost some friends that I had had for a long time. All of a sudden, it's like you've always known me. I just never told you. Why all of a sudden am I so evil now? And because it goes against the faith,
Mhm.
the Roman Catholic faith. So that's why I'm always curious to ask other people in this field how they dealt with that. Because I had a hard time with it until I met Michelle. I had a really difficult time, and then she helped
I'm
me
the
through
weird
that.
friend.
No, you're my best friend, but like you explained it to me in a different perspective, and when you look at it in an evolving perspective, you understand we all learn differently and we all progress differently.
You
So
use the gifts that you were given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like we learn over time too that sometimes people have places in our lives that are very valuable. Like there are friends I had growing up who I could not have made it through growing up without those
sure.
friends.
Absolutely.
But now to leave them behind because they won't come with me on this
I know. That's
is
true.
is sad in some ways, but also it doesn't erase the fact that we had those times that we shared together.
That's right.
It doesn't erase what they did for me in those moments when I couldn't be who I wanted to be
It
Mhm.
wasn't yet.
or wasn't yet.
Mhm.
So it is tough, but also there are also a lot of toxic relationships that I know I had. That looking
Glad to
back
see
now,
that.
it's like I'm almost glad those are gone because
right.
That's
That's a
right.
good point. That's a good point, and that's a really
Sounds
good
like
point.
for sure.
Yeah, there's some that you're okay with, and you realize they were your lesson.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Once you get past the emotional part of it, right?
yeah.
Well, that's the thing is
Good.
it's determining whether they're your lesson or you're their lesson.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Because once the lesson has been taught, you do move on.
It's not taking it personally first. That's the
Right.
hard part. That's the human side of us.
Mm,
Yeah.
human.
And it's interesting then to see the people who come into our lives to fill that gap. The friendships you would never have had if you had
Right.
stuck around to be the old person that those people expected you to be.
Yeah.
I know
and,
we've made some really great friends in this.
and the
People of like
amazing
mind,
life
though.
experiences, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You just keep evolving. That's how you evolve, is by meeting other people along the journey who can offer you insight, help you grow, or vice versa. I think you're helping a whole lot of people do that right now, because people have a mortal fear of some of this stuff. A healthy curiosity, but a mortal fear.
Being able to speak with someone who thinks that their house is possessed because they've only ever seen The Exorcist
Mhm.
and that's their only framework, and to explain to them and to help them navigate a paranormal experience
Mhm.
and say it's not nearly as bad as you think. This is a low level, like anti-structural poltergeist issue. This is not a possession. You're
Right.
going to be fine.
Right.
You're
Is
not crazy.
life changing. Just
Yeah.
saying, yeah, you're not crazy is life changing for some of these people. And that is the best work one can do, I hope.
Well, they're putting their trust in you, right? So it's like you're carrying that weight for a little while. So that's an honor, really. It is. There's a lot of people out there who are the opposite. It's like, you should be thankful we're here. What? No, not really. It should be the other way around. Like, thank you for entrusting
Yeah.
yourselves and your family to me. This is
To me, and thank you for sharing this with me.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So when you're dealing, then that's a good point. Poltergeist. How do you deal with something like that? For me, I'm looking at them in some respects thinking, telekinesis, psychokinesis. It's a projected, self-projected energy. So how do you, because the seance you can't really communicate with it.
No.
Yeah. And I'm reminded of what you just said about people are putting their trust in you. When you're doing this kind of consultation, people just know that you have some level of authority. So you really need to be careful about what you're telling them, literally what you're saying to them about their experience and what they can do, because it is connected to their lives. It's deeply personal, and they are, like, we are all influencing the spirit contact around us.
Right.
So it is so important to approach it by listening to what their exact experience is, and then working with them to find solutions that are going to be easy and that work for them, and then staying in touch.
Yeah. So some of our work when it comes to like a poltergeist is firstly to buy them some peace of mind, to have the conversation, assuring them that you're not crazy, you're not, off your rocker. And if there is some sort of, if there is some sort of mental health issue, to put them in contact with not only a therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist who can help them, but also someone who has a working knowledge of the paranormal, who is a certified individual in that field, so they can talk to them on terms that they understand, so that no one's walking into a therapist's office and talking about astrology and being dismissed. So that's important. Those are like the mundane things.
No, that's true.
But
mindset is everything.
Yeah. And then providing them with, like specifically in a poltergeist case, talking with them about some of the things we can do to like buy them that peace of mind that this is not a spirit or a demonic possession or something that means them harm or is dangerous in the way Hollywood portrays that. So there have been times where Kat and I have performed a banishing ritual with them there that we know we didn't really need to do, but that was buying that individual working peace of mind. And then
that's 100%. That's a great thing to do. I think you have to change what's up here.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with something like that, which you feed. And then sometimes the solutions can be very mundane. Again, like what's going on at work, like what's going on in your home life, your love life, etc. And what are you bringing into that? Not too in depth.
I understood.
So about that love life,
No video clips, no PowerPoint.
No. Right.
What's going on? What are you literally sometimes bringing home with you and fixating on in this space, because that is going to manifest. So it's a multi faceted process. And the thing I really loved, Kat, that you said that I just want to reiterate is that when we come into a space for like a consultation or investigation, is hearing what they are saying and actually hearing what they're saying, not bringing our own preconceived ideas and projecting it onto them.
Right. No, that's important. That's important. I find that sometimes just putting it in their hands. Sometimes people just need to know they've got someone standing with them, and that's enough to flip the switch and make them feel like, no, I'm in control. I've got this. When people feel alone, they just falter. They need to know they've got reinforcements. So I think the ritual you did was probably one of the strongest things you could have done, because that right there makes them feel powerful. Okay, see, I feel good. Sense the power of suggestion. So I think it's great. As we're slowly nearing the end of the show, this is the part where you tell everybody what you have coming up, how everybody can reach you.
That magic website we couldn't share.
You guys will love the website, because if Facebook doesn't want it, it's awesome.
Yeah. Get a pencil quickly.
So we we of course are available for readings. We do offer readings, and we do them via Zoom. You can look at that and find that on our website.
Mhm.
And then this month, because it is spooky season, we are doing 2 public in-person seances. So if you're in the Maryland
Nice.
area and you want to hold a seance in the one of the most haunted buildings in the state, come and join us. We'll have some fun.
There you go, people.
And if you're out of the state, or you're, even internationally in some cases, we do digital seances, and we actually send you a curated box of seance supplies. So we'll send you a pendulum, we'll send you some sigils, some protection amulets.
We need to do this. You don't have to ship us anything.
You're more than welcome to, and we'd love to ship it to you. So, and the link for that is on our website as well. And those are a blast. We were always skeptical about how well a digital seance would work, and then we started doing them, and it was a different feel, but so interesting and so exciting.
Well, for so many that feel such a connection with you can still be a part of it. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Give that website again.
Yeah, their website is theeckharts.com, and that's ECKHARTS.com. And our social media is really easy. We're at the.eckharts on Instagram, the Eckharts on Facebook, and at the.eckharts on TikTok.
I love it. I love it.
And we love your questions, so go ahead and reach out. We try to be as accessible to you as possible.
Yes. Again, it's spooky season, and we do this full time. So if we don't get back to you the next day, we're going to try within the next few days.
You can bother us if you want.
But please feel free to bother us. That's what we're here for.
There we go. So just flood the message centers, guys. There we go. Well, thank you guys so much for. Look, what is this? Did you do that, or was it?
Yes,
it was okay. Good, because I'm like, I'm not touching anything, and I'm losing my freaking mind. So, okay, good.
No, the dramatic one has nothing to do with me. It's just very weird that it's Dolly that it keeps coming up.
I don't know. She's probably thinking the same thing.
Right?
Anyway, yeah, this is great. But thank you for joining us. It really was a pleasure to have you guys. Like I said, I love the perspective. The way you guys do things is refreshing. And please don't stop. And just
thanks for having us. This was really lovely.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it.
Yeah, nice and laid back, fun. I like
so
that.
refreshing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So have a great weekend coming up, and let us know if you have something new coming up. Maybe we can do this again.
Absolutely. Great. We'd love to. Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Wow. I really enjoyed that. That was a nice, healthy perspective, and it was a lot of fun. Fun. So in order for you guys to leave the studio, because I know I bumped you into the green room, you just have to click on the leave studio button. I know.
I'm going to put that in our letters.
How do we get out of here? I don't know. But again, we have come to like another end of a great segment. Honestly, it goes by so fast. I just can't get over it. It's just, it just goes by too fast. And end up with all these questions. And I love a nice laid back round table interview. It's awesome. So big thank you to Dan and Kat Eckhart. You guys are awesome. So with that being said, guys, I'm glad you tuned in. Thank you to everybody in the chat room. You guys really make it that much more special. You really do. And I'm really sad we're finishing up early, but what are you going to do? Anyway, thank you to Folgers. You guys really do make this that much more special part of our journey. I'm feeling emotional. And big thank you to Justin Snicker, who provides us with his music, his voice. It's just such a wonderful gift. Thank you for taking a chance with us. Please stop by International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio. Get on YouTube, subscribe, please. And don't forget about us on the Outer Realm over on Facebook. Drop us a line at the outerrealmcontact@gmail.com, outerrealmcontact@gmail.com. Now, next week, we're still up in the air with Wednesday, so I don't really have anything to tell you because we're just trying to decide what we want to do. It is October. But Thursday night, we welcome John Russell to the show for the very first time, and he will be discussing the paranormal because it's spooky month. We want to try to put as much paranormal as possible. So for Canada, we have Thanksgiving weekend coming up, everyone. So if you are, here partaking, do it safely. Have a good time. Enjoy your families, and have a terrific weekend. So thank you. Good night, everyone.
You have been listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano, airing live every Wednesday and Thursday evening, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 to 10 p.m. Central, on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.